Hey, ShenangoScience8 Open Housers, it's Mr. Drzezinski, and I'm going to make a video here that introduces myself and the Science 8 class here at Shenango, and show you a slideshow, and I'll talk over it to give you an idea of what we go over in the course and what kind of handles you might have at home to interact with it. Thank you. Our Science 8 course is designed to prepare the students for the PSSA Science 8 test in the spring. They took a PSSA science test in 4th grade, and we take another one again in 8th grade. I was originally a tech ed teacher, but I'm certified to teach middle school math and middle school science, and I do teach a tech ed class in the high school, STEM gadget and STEM brand. Here are the topics that we cover in Science 8. We started with scientific investigations, where the students learn how to do a scientific experiment. We're currently working on this bread mold experiment. We'll be doing that for a couple of weeks. Afterwards, the students are asked to do their own scientific investigation using the PJAS format. That's Pennsylvania Junior Academy of Science. And that can be done by December, and there is PJS competitions in the spring if they're interested in taking advantage of that. We did an exercise on scientific equipment. There's quite a number of things that we need to use in this class, and the students need to know for that PSSA test. Chemical properties were just started here recently. We talk about elements and compounds and mixtures. There is a soil unit, which we talk about loam and humus and loess and how soil is made. This patterns unit is actually a weird unit, but the eligible contest wants us to recognize patterns that are made by humans, like our schedule in the day, and then patterns made in nature, like tree rings and leaf veins. We also do a lot with photosynthesis in this class. Structure and function of living organisms is sort of a biology unit. We talk about cell theory and what kind of structures organisms have that allow them to survive better in their environment. We study their adaptations. We also do some classification of organisms. Natural selection and evolution is done here. And genetics. We talk about inherited and acquired traits, dominant recessive genes. Although we don't talk a lot about DNA, DNA is talked more about in biology class next year, 10th grade. There's some energy, states of energy, types of energy, and environmental impacts. Quite a lot of discussions about how we maybe can go to green energy away from our current energy sources that might be more pollutant. Simple machines is a physics unit, which Mr. Flood might have introduced last year in 7th grade. Force, friction, gravity, machines, simple machines, Newton's law of motion. Plate tectonics is geology, which might be just about as much geology as the students here at Shenango get. We talk about continental drift and plate tectonic theory, how mountains are made and how volcanoes and earthquakes form. There is a rocks unit, which students need to know 4 types of igneous, 4 types of sedimentary, and 4 types of metamorphic rocks. They'll study their characteristics. We talk about how renewable and non-renewable sources form and how we can reduce, reuse, and recycle. And of course, the water systems have to do with the water cycle and fresh and salt water. Towards the end of the year, we're talking about climate and weather, cold fronts and warm fronts, dew point pressure, land breezes, sea breezes. We also talk about the solar system at some point in time. We're talking about different types of ecosystems and the organization of living things. And with the solar system, we'll talk about the sun and planets, asteroids, comets, moons. Simple systems is another little bit of a strange unit. We talk about open and closed systems and electrical systems, heating and ventilation systems, other controlled systems. We talk about systems in nature, including the water cycle, nitrogen cycle, carbon cycle. That's a mishmash of things there. And one of the last things we talk about before the PSSA test is how to gain evidence from scientific experimentation. After the PSSA test, I was able to introduce a couple of units on my own. I'm very interested in citizen science. There are some websites in which anybody can participate in science by helping out scientific studies. Sometimes it's just watching trail cams to see if there's any certain organisms on there. They collect and have people all over the world helping scientists do their studies by just contributing some time and effort. I like to talk about cognitive sciences, which again are not talked about, I think, anywhere else in school, except for maybe the psychology class in high school. But I'd like to talk about the difference between the brain and the mind and thinking and memory and learning and those sort of things. We do take a field trip in eighth grade to Lutherland, and the students are exposed to team challenges. That's probably coming up here in September. I would expect the students to bring some kind of book that they can hold all of their papers in. We do not work from a textbook in Science 8. We work from copied sheets that we have. Or if we happen to be remote, these copied sheets will be in the Google Classroom or the Dietrich homepage. And then each day I expect students to bring a pen or a pencil. Chromebooks are going to be optional unless I ask for them specifically, which I might do on occasions because we're using a online tool, several online tools, but one of which is practice questions for PSSA. That'll be done in the IXL application. Trying to give homework almost every night, little bits of homework. I like students to open up their science and look at it again at the end of the day, maybe answer some questions. And you'll see lessons on the Dietrich homepage which specify what the homework is each night. The units aren't very long, a week or two, and there'll be a test after each unit. Again, you can see the schedule of the tests on the lessons on the Dietrich homepage. We also try to do note takers, which the students have just fill in the blank notes. We also have labs and activities. We try to do something hands on each unit as well. And the grades are made up of the homework completion, the lab and activity completion, and the success on the tests. There is one extra credit piece each 9 weeks, and you'll find that on the Dietrich homepage. And generally, it's just a poster that gets made and submitted either electronically if it's done at home, or we have poster paper and things to use here at school. At the end of the year, a Science 8 award is given to the student who asks the most and the best questions during the year. Students that ask questions are primed and ready to learn, and I really encourage students to ask questions. Plus, it really provides some flavor for the class. Allows them to make a contribution as to what we're talking about. PSSA Science 8 tests will be given in May. I have to suggest that Shenango has been very successful with this test in the county, at least. My goal is to try to get 90% of the students proficient at the PSSA class and test. Before the COVID year, we were up to about 76% and climbing. And in order to be proficient, you'll have to get 70% correct on that PSSA test. We're teaching straight to it, and I'm hoping that everybody someday is proficient. No child left behind. Prior to IXL, we were using Study Island. You might be familiar with that, but we're going to put Study Island away and get out this IXL tool. It does the similar thing where it asks questions, but it is scalable. So as students get questions correct, the questions can get more difficult and go to better content. And then as I should say, more advanced content. And then if students don't get questions correctly, it's scaled down to more remedial things, and more lessons are provided and learning opportunities are provided for the students. I have not used it extensively, but I'm looking forward to using that this year. CSIU has the grades. I try to put grades in there almost every day, so they're up to date. If you have any questions about the grades, let me know. But somebody at home and the student should have access to the grades. Parent Square allows us to message back and forth to each other, and I can send messages to students through Student Square. That's a good way to get in touch with me. This is just a tool that really uses my Deidre email. It alerts me to the messages, and then I can send messages or attach documents to and from home. The Deidre homepage, something I have linked in the Google Classroom. And if you go to the homepage, I have all of the documents. Eventually, I'll have all of the documents in the class posted there. Right now, we got scientific investigation and chemical properties units in there. You'll find under the lessons heading the plan for the week. You'll find under activities, extra credit, homework, notes, all of the documents I'm using in class. Then at the bottom there, PSSA, Science 8 Awards, syllabus, and test reviews. Those a lot of those things are extras that you can access through there. But I would encourage you to go through and look at the Deidre homepage. The Google Classroom we used again this year, and hopefully everyone that has a Chromebook can get right on there. Depending on how much we can do online and people getting quarantined will depend on how much more or less I put in there. I much prefer the students to be in school here and use hard copies and interact with me. But if that doesn't work, you'll be able to get the copies in file format, and then you can complete them and turn them in there as well. Okay. If you have any questions for me, please get me through Parent Square. I appreciate your hard work with your students, and I'm looking forward to everybody being successful this year. Thank you.